just let's go and can, Mark, can you keep an eye on Zoom in case John joins? All right. So, calling to order the meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board. Planning Board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. This meeting is being held both in person and virtually through Zoom pursuant to Governor Baker extending the COVID-19 rules allowing public meetings to be conducted remotely so that board and committee members as well as members of the public can participate remotely. So first on our agenda, as always, is public comment. So is there anybody here to talk about something that is not already on the agenda? All right, so moving down, we have two sets of minutes for acceptance. The minutes were placed into the Google Drive for the planning board to review them.
Well, a couple of corrections. But you can take a motion to, but I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay. Hearing motion, can I have a second? And can you specify the minutes in your motion, please?
Oh, these are from June 16th, 2022.
Excellent. Hearing first, do we have a second?
I second the motion.
All right, hearing a first and a second. Discussion.
The discussion, I just have a few typos and, so if you go to, let's see, nothing on page 1, nothing on page 3, the first sentence in the third paragraph, on-site instead of offsite, right? And the end of the next paragraph, first line, indicated, Mr. Berthold indicated, and during, and then the last line of that paragraph, second to the last line, durong, I think it's supposed to be during.
Yeah.
And I was a little confused by this, you know, it's the standard question, it's probably the way it's said, you probably took it out of it, but it says, Mr. Blanchard asked if there were no retail sales. Mr. Berthold stated yes. When you ever see something worded like that, it's meaning yes, yes means no, you know, but maybe we'll just leave it. This is probably what was said. Top of the next page, first line, places associate. And then I think that we should add right below that paragraph, Mr. Monroe closed the hearing, because the next item on the agenda doesn't involve that hearing.
Where,
Right, just
where on the
right
page
here.
is that?
The last page, up at the top, see where it's in bold, the next item on the agenda? But this was a public hearing,
Am I?
so, and I do think we closed the hearing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, right here. And he was chair by that time, this was our organizational meeting, so.
Oh, he was chairman.
Or you
June.
can just say the
Okay.
hearing was closed or something, to indicate that the next item isn't part of it.
So, oh, these are your comments that I'm looking at.
No,
You put comments into the document?
yes, I guess I did, I didn't mean to.
Okay.
This is why I can't do this job.
That explains why the
I don't have
pages don't line up for me.
technology. And then,
Alice.
third paragraph from the background, this is balloon test instead of the balloon test.
Yeah.
And the third paragraph from the bottom, the is cited for the project, the last couple lines in. So, nothing of any great substance, but you might as well have them right. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I just threw them up there. I didn't
No, no.
review the old ones.
No, no, I don't think I could put any others in there, that was just one that,
Mark and Mr. Chair, there were some additional, some typographical items that I corrected, and I've already saved them.
Okay.
So you will have them, they're Google, spell checks, so they should be very straightforward. Some of them overlap with what Alice, Leptal just mentioned.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, let's have a vote on accepting the minutes
As presented.
as presented with edits.
Livedall, aye.
Steiger, aye?
I'm gonna abstain, I wasn't here.
This is 6:16, you are?
You were,
The organizational meeting,
Yeah.
Oh,
let's see if you were here. It says.
It says.
So you were here.
Moment's here.
oh, okay.
You're still-
Real quick.
You're still welcome to abstain if you
Yes,
want, but
exactly.
you don't have to.
Oh, I'll abstain, 'cause I didn't look at it, I thought it was
Okay.
when I wasn't here.
Okay. Monroe, aye. And Francois, did you vote?
I did already, yes.
All
In
right.
Affirmative.
So hearing 3 yeses, the motion carries. Next is the next set of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 2022.
I
Right
will
up to date
second.
here.
Which it wasn't.
Hearing a motion and a second, any discussion?
Nope, I didn't see anything in this one.
You're not allergic to peanuts, are you?
Hmm?
You're not allergic to peanuts?
No. Allergic to babies.
Oh.
Me too.
No.
Cheese doodles.
What are you gonna do?
No,
Absolutely
they're
not.
peanut butter puffs.
Oh,
Yeah,
peanut
you have peanut butter.
Yeah.
somewhat healthy.
Less sugar, more nutritious.
Yeah.
They're nothing but corn and peanut butter.
All right, any more discussion on this? So,
Yeah,
No.
further discussion?
lived all I.
Steiger, aye?
Monroe, aye. I know, it's a habit. All right, so, motion carries. Moving down the list, we have no public hearing today, although all of our hearings are public, that's just a legal term of art. New business, Tavano for Lombard Road.
I didn't think it was gonna be this formal, but, so
You can
we
approach
were-
if you want and sit
Yeah,
here.
you can,
The
as long
I don't know
as,
how you run this.
as long as you're not allergic to peanuts.
No.
The microphone picks you up there
Yeah.
for our listening audience.
So, my son and I bought a piece of land in Hubbardston. I lived here from 1996 to, about 19 years on Blueberry Farms. He grew up here. So anyway, we're recircling. I live in Westminster now, and, so I bought, anyways, long story short, bought in May a 10-acre parcel on Lombard. And so, before I started the process, we were chatting about, a multifamily for us, and then splitting it. The way I had the engineer, he just threw out something, but to have it split down the middle, but I don't know what the best process would be before I have him work on these plans. So I wanted to come, well, I was gonna come to the town, but, he said, oh, you're having this meeting, so.
Yep.
To figure out what would be the best solution, cause I'm trying to build, this is a ranch style, 2-family on one side and have a rental on the other side to help us with the mortgage of this. So I didn't know the best, if it's a special permit, you know, him and I were looking at the regulations, and we have frontage on both sides. What's the road behind Lombard?
Starts with a T, it's like.
Tohoto. So there's Tohoto, and then Lombard's in the front, so it's
Mhm.
one long strip. So we didn't know, the way the frontage read is 280 on the back and 250 on the front. So we didn't know if we could have one road and then split it like an A&R or a,
Well, let's hold off on getting into the how for the moment and
Okay.
talk a little bit more about what exactly you're looking for.
okay.
So specifically, what you're looking for is to be able to build a duplex, correct?
Pretty much, it's a ranch duplex,
Okay, so.
multifamily.
My understanding is that that would be looked as multifamily and it is a residential agriculture zone. So I believe,
You could do it
Alice is-
two-family, but you need more frontage and you need more area,
Yes.
is my recollection. I can,
How much?
if you keep talking, I can find it.
yeah.
Okay.
Also,
Just gotta go to the-
in the last few weeks,
Mhm.
we've implemented a more formal zoning determination process now that we have
Okay.
a building commissioner, that we're well engaged with. Unfortunately, he is currently on vacation and won't be back until next week.
Okay.
But,
Here it is.
4.1B, Alice.
Yep. Says two-family residents other than mobile homes, provided that, these are under a list of allowed uses. Two-family residents other than mobile home, provided that the minimum lot area requirement is increased over that required for a single-family dwelling by an additional 30,000 square feet for the additional unit, and the lot frontage requirement is increased over that which is required for a single-family house by 50 feet. So this would mean our frontage is 200 feet, you would need 250 feet,
I have
and,
that.
and instead of 80,000 square feet, you would need 1,100 square feet.
100.
Yeah,
110,000, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Almost 3 acres.
Yes, right. You need an extra, right,
So,
which is,
It's a 10-acre lot.
yeah, so,
yeah, you've got that.
so I,
80,000 is 2 acres.
and there's no special permit required for that, is
No.
there on that, that's by
Nope.
right?
It's permitted by right.
Okay, yep, that's under by right. So yeah, I would still recommend talking to Duffy when he gets back from vacation to get a more formal, zoning determination. But,
So what, with this, if we were to split it down the middle, would that be a special permit if we put two?
well,
You have to stay as
you-
one lot.
Yeah,
Let's say one lot,
Yeah.
and how, up the, what's considered multifamily, up to how many units?
We allow up to 4,
Okay,
but not in
Yeah.
every zone.
okay, so that's, I would have to determine that.
You're talking about in one structure, one physical
Yes, in
structure.
one
Yeah.
structure.
So
Now-
one physical structure,
And then
okay,
each time you add a unit, it's more land and more frontage.
right, okay,
But you can't have a lot line that runs through the middle of the house,
okay.
so that you have to keep the lot
So if I did
as
a
one.
4-unit, well, after I check, keep it to
Uh,
where it is, the driveway,
Yeah.
4-unit,
you would,
I
multifamily.
think then you're in the special permit category, but I
Yeah.
could look it up for you.
you definitely wanna get a formal, zoning determination from
Okay.
Duffy on that one.
4.2E.
Okay.
4.2E, here's our extra here. 4.2E, use permitted by special permit in residential districts. Multifamily residence up to 4 family units may be constructed in an area not within the Aquifer Favorability Protection District, provided that the minimum lot area requirement is increased over that required for a single-family dwelling by an additional 30,000, again, square feet for each additional unit.
So you need
That-
150.
And the lot frontage
That aquifer, issue
by 50 feet
is
per
it
unit.
that part of Lombard Road you don't think is?
No.
No, good,
Okay.
cause that's by Fitchburg's water supply.
Yeah, that's a DEP zone A.
Perfect.
Yeah, it sits up high, the land goes, you know,
Yeah, there's certain areas in town that get special protection
Mhm.
if they're of, a quality where you could possibly build a municipal well in the future.
okay.
And that's that favorability zone, and those are the areas that get special protections because of it.
Okay,
In
You
case
need-
somebody in 200 years wants to put in a water supply system.
350 feet of frontage.
well, I have 280 and
Yeah.
250, so I don't know if that counts. I have it, I don't know if together, if they would combine that.
Does it need
I
to be
would-
continuous?
Cause it'd be
or-
two, I could have put a road in the back too.
I would defer to Duffy on that.
Okay, okay, so,
But you have the potential for 2 lots. You have frontage up high and you have frontage down low.
yeah, like I was talking about
So
that.
if you drew a line in the middle,
Then you,
you would have a lot there and a lot there, and they both have more than 250 feet, so they would both by right be allowed to have a duplex.
And you also, if you divide them properly, because you said you have 10 acres, right?
Right,
That amounts to 435,000 square feet. So because of that, if you have the 80,000 plus the 30,000, which is 110, and on the other side you also do the same thing, you would end up with 220 in total.
okay,
So, you're still within the square footage.
okay, so it'd be 5,000, 5 acres
5
and 5
acres.
acres.
Yeah, if you did each
You
lot.
could,
In the middle.
you could in theory do that.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind, however, is always you need to look at the lot that you have,
Mhm.
check the wetlands,
Yeah, I
and
had
all
that.
the other types of things that need to be, taken into consideration here, because
Mhm.
wherever it is that you're going to be either building, that one unit, or the unit that has the 4 residences, or if it's 2 units, you always need to make sure that it is,
Yeah,
it is clear of the wetlands
Yeah,
area.
it's more in the middle, cause
Okay.
I had the engineer, I don't know if you get on Graz Engineering, out in New
Yep,
Hampshire.
I know them.
You know him?
Give him that, because this is your property here.
Yeah.
See that hatch?
Yeah,
That's what's known as a DEP zone A.
what's that mean?
You can't have a septic system in there.
And just for
Down
the,
here, or up here where my lot is?
Your property is right here, right?
Yeah,
See the hatch, it goes on the front of your property and just ticks a little bit on Lombard.
Okay,
You can't put a septic system in either of those areas.
and the top part of it?
The light green,
So, when he designed it up here on top, on the Lombard Road.
yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
Not in there, not in there.
And just for the record, Mr.
Yeah.
Murray is from Places Associates and is the consultant to the planning board.
Oh, okay.
And that's free advice, so you got what you paid for.
So it'd be the one in the front, yeah, cause he has it up over that.
Just show your engineer that,
Okay. Okay,
make sure he doesn't miss it.
okay.
But important for you to notice, you have options,
Bill just did.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
and that decision is yours, not ours.
Whatever's allowable. So, his name is Duffy?
Duffy.
Okay,
Building
and how do I get a
commissioner.
hold of him?
What's the, you get a hold of him through Abby, and what's Abby's hours?
I
Do
think
you
I
know?
spoke to Abby, she's the one.
Gabby, sorry. Everybody's new.
That's okay, don't worry.
How long will they
Yeah.
last?
Is he back from hunting?
Not yet.
We've been through many.
But yeah, that's the way to get the formal determination. What we give you is just informal,
Okay, yeah.
although if you go for a special permit, we ultimately are the people who would make that decision, but it's not as binding as getting something from Duffy.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank you,
stopping by.
guys.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, and come in, like, this is the only way we can all talk about it at
Okay.
once on the record because of the open meeting law, so
Sure.
that's why we just had you come in. And Mr. Stoll?
Yes, Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road. Our property doesn't abut your lot, but there is one in between them. And there's a number of streams and wet areas that do run through your property down into a trout stream that is on our property. So I just
Is that
wanted.
the 18 acres? Is that, cause this is, I know there's one
That-
here and one here that was for sale.
Our property is here.
Okay.
This is the one in between
Yep.
us. And I can't see the property line, but it goes all the way up to Bickford Road. So that one's a little bit bigger, like 18 acres
Yeah, that's beside
possibly.
us, this.
But you can see these streams, oh, I see, they're in the crosshatched area.
Yeah, he's
They
highlighted them,
do-
so
do-
it's
Oh, that was the
here.
end of me with him.
And there are some, I can't remember off the top of my head which lot, but there are some vernal pools in this area. I think a couple of them are on our property. But there's another one, I can't recall whether it be on your property or the, one that abuts both of us in between.
Okay.
So, good luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
Email addresses.
you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes new business, so on to old business. First under old business is Aho 7 New Templeton Road. For the purpose of this evening, we're just gonna talk about the report from Bill. I would like to refrain from other substantive discussion about it, just because we don't have the party here, and this is a violation. So, Bill, go ahead.
Okay. I'll take it off so people can hear me. I visited the site last Sunday. It's a beautiful day. There is an existing break in the wall, a gateway or a barway. I measured it, it's about 10.5 feet wide, and it's actually extremely well made. It's got turn-in stones on the wall. So the wall itself is barely visible from New Templeton Road. The exposed side is on the house side, so it's acting as a somewhat of a retaining wall. And on the northerly, well, no, that's the westerly side, closest towards the center of town, there is a very tall town culvert and head wall. So the access closest to Route 68, across the grade in the front of that lot, really isn't practical. And then as you head down New Templeton Road towards Templeton, the wall becomes less steep, and then at the property line, it pretty much, the wall and earth meet, and it's only about a foot tall. So the short story is, if they are going to use the existing barway, both of those really substantial trees did have to come out for safety reasons. They were completely blocking this sight line within the right-of-way, and they would in fact have to be completely removed. So the only other option is to look at relocating the driveway, and frankly, the barway was there, and I don't think that there really is much of a better location for that driveway sight distance-wise. So that was the choice. Either they could have broken the wall in a different location for a driveway. They still would have had to have taken down, there's another tree towards the Templeton side, probably a 24-inch oak. They would have had to have taken that one down if they were gonna move the driveway northerly towards Templeton. So my short conclusion is that the stone wall break is a good place for that driveway to be, and I recommend that it be maintained as it is. They've only scuffed a rock, they haven't damaged, they haven't moved rocks in order to gain access to the property. And I think it's 10.5 feet wide, it should be big enough. If that's the conclusion of the planning board, then they would in fact have to remove those 2 significant trees, which they did remove. So we're recommending that they keep the opening, and the only reason to expand that opening is if the Department of Public Safety, either the police or the fire department, say that 10.5 feet isn't too wide, but you know, a vehicle isn't allowed to be on the road unless it's less than 8.5 feet wide. So they should be able to get through. We recommend that the stumps of the trees be removed equal to or lower than the existing grade to ensure sight distances, because right now the stumps are sticking up, I don't know, maybe a foot, 1.5 feet each, maybe a little bit more. And so the stumps themselves are still causing an impediment to sight distance. And I'd like to see those stumps ground, not excavated out. If they use an excavator, they're gonna rip out part of the wall. And of course, that area needs to be stabilized and seeded. And then our final recommendation is that the driveway approach to the road, as it is currently, they're essentially following the grade, which is not an unreasonable thing. But because the street side, the shoulder of the street is high in that area, comes up, the driveway should be level for at least 20 feet. So when a vehicle pulls up, the line of sight and the eye of the driver is above the berm and not pitching down. So that driveway should be level, then pitch down and in. So those are our recommendations, that if you're gonna keep the barway and they didn't propose to alter the barway or the gateway, then those trees did in fact have to come out, and they should do something about those massive stumps.
Absolutely.
Now, I just wanna know, when you had the driveway, I went out and looked at it, and I do see it's below grade. But isn't within our jurisdiction in the scenic bylaw to dictate driveways, is it? Isn't that up to, is it our, it's a question of jurisdiction?
Well, the portion of the driveway's within the right of way, and it's a safety hazard, as is the presence of the trees. So I think it's a mitigation and safety factor, they're all one.
Even if you're going on the private property side of it?
It's
Okay.
a recommendation.
Okay, I just,
How far into the
We
right
had
of
that
way are we
authority.
talking about?
It should be 20 feet back from the edge of pavement. So the right of way is probably 15, 16 feet.
So
The stone
significant-
wall is
Okay.
15, 16 feet from the edge of pavement.
So it's a significant component of that
Yeah. Yeah.
from the 20 feet,
Yeah.
at least 3/4 of it, okay.
And we just want the height of the driver exiting the driveway to be able to just see over the berm, so they could see to the left and the right, to make removing those trees worthwhile. But we can't force them once they're on their property, but they are, you know, it's
can I
a
ask
safety
another
issue.
jurisdictional question? Do we have, did you notice in your thing here it says a bond, perhaps a bond?
Well,
Do
they
we have
can't.
that authority under the scenic bylaw?
Well, they have an obligation to plant and stabilize, and they're not going to be able to plant and stabilize, it's too late in the season. So, if you don't want a bond, then you just need to assure them that, number one, they have to remove those stumps, and that is a safety hazard for the residents that are there. And number two, if they're going to do that this fall, or sometime this winter, they can't erode onto the road, they can't have erosion coming onto the road from their actions working on the shoulder.
Does the town take a bond with a driveway opening?
I don't think so.
And do other communities with their scenic bylaws take bonds for this kind of
Yes.
thing? They do?
Yeah,
You
other
think it's
communities
within
do.
our jurisdiction, okay.
Or you can just make it a condition of the permit, but then, I mean, he's gonna wanna build that house and he's gonna wanna occupy as quickly as he can. He's gonna probably wanna put that foundation in now and then frame up over the winter and occupy in the spring.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna wanna hold up occupancy, I don't think, because of this issue.
So
So there
bond
should
will-
be, some mechanism for the property owner to be encouraged to stabilize and clean it all up.
Yeah, procedurally, we advertise the public hearing for that application on the 17th. So that's when, obviously, we'll be making our decision on it. And I would also suggest that, as a board, we're gonna need to discuss, what happens punitively here. Because this is a knowing violation of the scenic bylaw. It was somebody who came in, showed that they knew about it, filled out the paperwork, and then just went ahead and did it without following up on it. So, yes?
Other towns institute a policy of X dollars per inch of caliper.
Or what?
So the caliper of a tree is the
Oh, right.
diameter. It's usually measured at breast height, but in this case, you'd measure it at the stump. And, some town, it depends on the town. Concord has a really aggressive one. But like something that was a 42-inch oak, a $10 an inch caliper penalty to go to putting trees elsewhere in town or for whatever other reason.
Yeah, I know we're gonna have to talk about that because under what we have for scenic road bylaw, it's a penalty of up to $300 per day. It's not specifically mentioned
Yep.
in relation to the size of the tree. I think we're just looking at time.
Yeah.
And I think we ultimately would be looking at time from when he came in here and agreed to do whatever it took to get back into compliance. So I think we as a board, we're gonna have to answer some of those questions before then, because, we haven't had what I would call willful violation since I've been on the board. So this is my first time going through what was a willful oh, you have? Well, we'll, either way, we will discuss that in great detail on the 17th when we have, Mr. Aho here. Anything else for questions for Bill?
No, I appreciate the detailed information that you provided, thank you so much.
That was awesome.
And in
Thank you.
in a timely manner.
Yeah, thank you very much.
One comment, can we make sure Mr. Aho gets a copy of this so he knows what we're looking at? I mean, it's now a public
Yeah,
record, it's been
absolutely.
submitted, right?
I'll send it to him.
Yeah, I think he needs to know.
All right, anything else on that one? All right, on to Dennis 44 Hillville Road.
Yes.
All right, you're welcome to come.
Okay, I
Join.
know that we are in the house and we're supposed to have our occupancy agreement, permit, whatever. And they said that you guys had to sign off on it. I know Bill was supposed to call me to meet with me to discuss how to finalize the frontage.
All right, so I'd like to give Mark a little bit of an opportunity to talk about this because of the research that he's done looking into it. And I actually wasn't at the meeting, apparently, where we put together the agreement.
I just do wanna say, I hope that everybody's looking at lot 4D and not 40. I think that was a big problem when we were dealing with things. On Hillville Road, there was a property, I don't know, I wanna say like 200 feet down the road that had a big 40 on it. And I know, I think during our first discussion, I said exactly what I was gonna do. And a member of the board said I misled you guys, and I went back to that meeting and I said what I said. So I don't know if 40 compared to 4D, what they classified our lot as, was confusion. I don't know.
May I ask,
Mhm.
the address, your address is 40,
Right, it's 44 now.
44.
44.
Okay,
Right, the lot was listed as 4D, like the letter D.
that's the lot on our records. Okay. There's a lot of fours there, I'm just trying to.
No, I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, cause I
Sure.
know that someone said I was misleading, and I
Well-
really got upset about it, and I went back to the original meeting and,
It's
Listen,
assessors map
no.
8 lot 64B. That's,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Since you were here,
My recollection, I was running this meeting, it was COVID, it was all remote, it was
right,
crazy.
yeah, that was
And
another
I-
thing.
Was that there were 9 trees marked to come down, and there were 14 cut. Are you trying to say the other 2 that were cut weren't on your front, in front
I-
of your house?
No, it's just when I was at the meeting, I said we wanted to totally clear the front. And I know that's what I said, I know on the map, it said anything over whatever the measurement was. So we had, marked them. And the tree commissioner called me and he said everything, I said, well, if you go from the X mark on one tree to the other end, I said, we wanna just clear the whole front up.
so
So- So I guess
Yeah, that's-
to
I
just,
mean, going forward, but I'm just like, I don't know.
just to move us along where we're at.
Yeah.
So Mark in his research had found a letter that the planning board drafted, and I don't know if it was sent because I wasn't at that meeting and Mark wasn't here then. And Mark, can you tell us a little bit about that letter?
Yeah, this was November 22nd. This is when you laid out the remediation conditions that were gonna be required. I'm sorry, the meeting was on November 18th. And there was a lot of discussion about.
2021,
Of 2021.
okay. And,
Um,
that one, I believe, a lot of us also were remote, so, and,
The whole thing was.
yeah.
yeah.
I just remark on that because there was some, I happen to have some technical issues on that day.
Actually, it wasn't. There was a, because this was the meeting that Chris Perner came to.
When he came here,
Yeah, and he came
were you,
to this table
Well, the
here.
remediation meeting,
I was in
not the
California, but I-
original.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay,
talking, I'm
alright.
not talking about the original
Alright, you're right.
application.
Okay.
Alright, either way, that's not germane to where we're going, so.
So anyway, talking about the remediation meeting. The gist of the conversation and the resulting letter that we think went out
This letter.
was that the stone, there were basically 3 conditions. The stone wall was to be repaired in the same condition as prior to the tree removal. The tree stumps existing within the right-of-way were to be trimmed to a height of not more than 6 inches above grade. And the earth along the lot's frontage was to be returned to a uniform surface free of ruts and gouges. So that's what you agreed on as what the conditions were that needed to be satisfied.
excuse me.
Fast forward to January of 2022, most of that work was done. The stone wall was restored, the stumps were mostly cut down. I think there were still a few that weren't cut down. And at that point, you issued a letter saying that it was substantially complete, but that Ms. Dennis and Bill Murray needed to meet to hash out what was gonna go on the right-of-way. So, pertinent to more recent conversations, I mean, at our last meeting, there were conversations on whether the stumps needed to be ground down, whether they needed to be removed. That wasn't part of the original discussions at all. That was never either required by the board or agreed to.
So what I would like to ask the rest of the board is this letter a fair representation of what went on, and is this what was sent out? Because if it was, this is ultimately our agreement, so, this is what we should be measuring compliance against and not what we discussed at the previous
I
meeting.
couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to check with the board and see, is this your recollection of what that discussion was, and is this letter what we believe went out? Because if it is, then this should be what's guiding our discussions in terms of what is compliance and not some of the other stuff that came up at the last meeting, because I think we might have been misremembering a little bit, so.
this is the actual vote that was taken, and that we sent a letter to them with. And its last sentence says, they may proceed with getting their home construction permits. And then it says, Jeffrey and Nancy Dennis have agreed to meet with William Murray of Place Associates, Inc., Planning Board's consultant, to discuss completion of the remaining work as the weather permits. So I don't know that the remaining work was defined. It was what they had to do in order to get their permit, that's my recollection, which was get the stumps down to grade level and get the stones back and there were trees laying over the wall when I saw it, cut on the other
Chris
side.
Byrne at that meeting agreed to do that.
So, and so I don't know what, I mean, Bill's here, you can ask him if you contacted him since?
He was gonna contact me.
Okay, well, I just wanna make sure that we're appropriately discussing what we think could possibly be outstanding, because in my mind, there was a question in the record of whether, because I wasn't at the meeting, of whether or not it was ground to grade, or if it was a height not more than 6 inches, because I think that's two potentially different things from a compliance standpoint. Because the current situation is the stumps are there and they are roughly 6 inches or so to the grade, is that correct?
I couldn't tell you that.
Well, without taking a tape measure to it, would.
I mean, we'll get them down. I mean, right now it's just like brush and debris that's in the front. I didn't really, we just got there like 2 weeks ago. It's not like I went out there with a weed whacker, you know, to see what's actually out there. I know there is a lot of rocks, cause there's a telephone pole, you know, out there, and then a whole mound of rocks around it. So, whatever you guys want us to do, I mean, I don't have a problem. I'm not gonna leave it the way it is right now, as far as like the weeds, you know, and everything else.
Well, because the big concern is the height of the stumps, because it's a safety issue, and the 6 inches, below 6 inches, makes it so something goes up instead of directly into them. And if the agreement that we put out here was 6 inches or less, then that seems like what we should be looking for compliance here. And then if that's something that's reasonable for you.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we
then-
can do more than that. It's just, I don't know what extent you
What was
guys
your
want.
intention to do, as you're going through this project, before all of this started?
Before all this
What
started?
did you wanna do?
I mean, just to weed whack it and kinda leave it the way it was, except, well, I mean, obviously, you're not gonna leave a stump up that high.
Is
I
that
mean,
your
if they have to
plan?
be cut down lower, then we'll come down lower,
Yeah.
so.
And
I mean, eventually I'd probably work on getting them all, to tell you the truth, cause who would wanna look at them? Well, that's me, but.
so our last letter going out said, which letter are we talking about?
There's two. The
Well,
first
which-
one said the stone wall, this one I guess I signed, so.
Right, I remember that at the meeting.
The stone wall, excluding the area of the proposed driveway, is repaired to be in the same condition it was prior to the tree removal. The pre-disturbance condition is documented by Google Earth, Virtual Streetscape. The repaired stone wall is to be restored to the same height, condition, and shall be continuous along the lot's frontage. And then the second was tree stumps existing within the right-of-way to the street side of the stone wall are to be trimmed to a height of not more than 6 inches above the existing grade. And then the third condition was, the earth along the lot's frontage is to be returned to a uniform surface free of ruts and gouges caused by the heavy equipment used to remove the trees. So are there big ruts and gouges in there? I don't
Not that
know.
I know of.
Well, Chris Byrne
I
agreed
mean, I
to
can
pick a
go in
lot,
front of it
clean
and
that
look,
up.
Yeah.
Is that the letter you received?
yes.
But Chris didn't do that.
He didn't clean it up?
The excavation contractor did it.
Oh, we did, okay.
The,
I think I heard
the
that.
stone wall anyway.
Right.
Right.
You can't really tell if there are ruts, it's overgrown with weeds right now.
I know I went and raked out some ruts close to the road, like before the meeting. I mean,
But-
I just walked down it, cause
Just-
it's wet anyhow, so whenever you park on the side, your car goes down some anyhow. I mean, I wouldn't leave a big rut, like, you know what I mean, like a big tire rut. I mean,
Right.
whatever you guys want us
I
to do.
think the biggest
So-
intention of the
you know.
board is to make it safe for people traveling the roadway, so when it's
Right, if they're
treacherous and
walking, so they're
slippery,
not twisting their
people
ankle.
can do more damage or hurt themselves on the
Right.
stumps and
Yeah,
The
so
ruts.
when do you think you could have the stumps cut down by?
I mean, I thought most of them were cut down. I'll go out there and measure them or get the weed whacker out and see if there's any ones uncovered.
Bill, what are
But I
your-
know there's some up by the driveway we cut, so.
Mr. Murray, what are your thoughts?
I just have to go take a look at it again.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
'cause-
recall what it looks like. I remember being out there and seeing it, but the way it
Yeah.
is today, I don't. haven't been
I
out
walk
there in a
past
while.
it once a week, but.
Yeah. So I think we're close to just having this done with, and it sounds like we need to check the height of the stumps,
Mhm.
and make sure they're within compliance, and,
The stones are back.
yeah, we already thought that the stones were back.
Yeah, as good as, I mean, it was never a crafted wall
Mhm.
to begin with. It was a rubble wall to begin with, so they just rubbled it back together.
Yeah, and the ruts and stuff from the skidder, those were,
Though, that's what I'm telling you, I don't know
Yeah,
whether
okay.
they're in there or not, cause it's been pretty, the weeds are pretty tall, even though the frost just.
had a lot of rain cycles since then too, they might just be gone. So why don't, if that, do we agree that that's just what we're looking at for the two items that we need to be, that we have outstanding?
I think that sounds reasonable.
The grading.
The stumps and making sure there's no ruts left? Okay, so what do you think you need for time to get those things done?
I mean,
or
my
to
husband
check
has a
back?
chainsaw, so we can go check them out, you know. If there's bigger ones, we can get a hold of somebody to get them out of there.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say get them out of there, but cut them lower, whatever. You guys want them just 6 inches above ground, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would like to set a time certain so we can have something on our agenda to follow back up on this. So do you
You
do
figure
2
a
weeks, a
like I'll
month?
probably get out there this weekend to tell you the truth.
Uh,
Because it's
Is
supposed
30
to be
days
nice out,
reasonable?
so.
Or
It's
do
our
you wanna
next
go-
meeting.
Mr. Merrick?
We don't wanna take it too far out or we'll have snow cover.
That's true.
How about
Uh,
next meeting?
Our next meeting is the 17th, right?
Yes.
Could you by the 17th?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
So we'll put you back on for the 17th to talk about it,
Okay.
and, Mr. Murray, if you swing by to take a look at that and send us a bill for your
Drive
time.
by it every day.
Okay,
Okay.
so that sounds like that one. Anyone, any further questions on that?
No.
Nope.
Okay,
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in.
yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Sorry about this, but I'd like to put it to rest.
I don't blame
Thank you.
Have a good
Yeah.
night.
You too.
Alright, so moving down the agenda, modifications to application process under administrative matters. And, this was something that Mark and I both agreed on, that we need to put on our agenda, cause we need to take care of, we need to clean up some of our administrative procedures, and make it easier for the next people. Because a lot of what we had was kept in Mallory's head and not necessarily in writing.
Mhm.
So we need that to not be the situation going forward. I know Mark had a couple things that he had specifically identified.
Yeah, well, as a general strategy, with all the town's budget problems and such, we're probably never gonna have a full-time person sitting in the office again to provide concierge service and hold people's hands through this process. So it's really incumbent upon us at this point to make sure that all our forms are crystal clear, that they have checklists that people can follow, that we provide people with some context of where where the board is going to be, what the criteria are going to be used for looking at an application. For example, in this situation out on Healdville, you had to educate your own tree warden on what the board's stance was on trees on a scenic road. So any communication that we present to the public should probably include just, at least a hint that this is our default, this is our goal, this is what we're trying to accomplish. If you have something else in mind, you better be prepared to defend it heavily. So anyway, I'm envisioning a checklist, you know, maybe with a brief preamble. And to start with, specifically, I'm looking at the scenic road application because it seems to be very popular. I've seen 3 or 4 of them just in the time I've been here.
Yeah, the thing that I specifically would like to see changed about the scenic road application is, kind of the process that it went through before was one would come in and then Mallory would just kind of figure out about what it would cost and that would be what was collected for it. I think we need to have a ballpark of what those fees are and make sure we're charging them ahead of time. And we also need to be able to identify relatively early on what we're gonna need Bill's help with. That way that gets built into the equation because people are more okay with paying fees when we can get them all out into the air as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, for the applications that don't have a fixed published fee, I would like to include on the cover sheet as well, some kind of a little calculation section of, you know, you have this many abutters, it's gonna be X dollars, and so people can get the total amount upfront.
There is a filing fee, isn't there? Scenic road application?
No?
Your latest form doesn't have any mention whatsoever of fee.
Yeah, and I don't believe it's on our fee schedule either.
And it's not on the
Okay,
fee
maybe there
schedule.
was never a fee for that. We only collected
One of the previous
advertising.
generations of forms said something to the effect of the appropriate fee must be provided,
Yeah.
or something to that effect. But anyway, with regard to the current generation form itself, do you wanna talk about any more general stuff, or?
No, well, let's ask the board. Does everybody get what we're suggesting here? Does anybody think we don't need to clean up our administrative processes and we should just leave them as they are?
No, I think we should update and change.
Okay?
I did a lot of work back before a lot of people were on this board, and they're about fees. And part of the problems are, some of them were set in the bylaws, some of them were flexible, the board can decide what it wants, and some of them were in general bylaws and some of them were in zoning bylaws. So just before, you can't like randomly set them,
Yeah.
you need to see what your authority is, and that may be why there was never one charge, because you had to go to a town meeting or something.
I believe that is the case for that one. But I think what we're proposing as a fee is an estimate of what the pass-throughs are. So it's not specifically a fee for the application, but it's a add up what the pass-through expenses are for the publication and all of those things.
I think we should have a fee for doing the whole thing.
I think we should too.
But that's probably why we don't.
But-
That's what the ZBA has, they have one fee for the whole application.
Yeah. I think what we might end up in, and the conversation we need to start having at the next meeting is about what do we want to try to get onto the spring town meeting, which we definitely have to have by our next meeting. That could be one of those things, because some of those fees, they do require a town meeting vote to change. So I guess to the extent that we want to make changes to those, maybe we should try to figure that out sooner than later. But I personally agree with Mark that the tree application is a good place to start, because it keeps being a hot button issue.
In all
And-
fairness to that tree application, this is fairly new for the board, we just started this one. When did this bylaw start?
1986 or something like
Right,
that.
but nobody
Yeah.
was doing anything with it,
Yeah.
we started it when we got on,
Yeah.
at the beginning of our board. So it's kinda like, we're kinda tippy-toeing through it,
Yeah.
not really knowing.
Well, and the latest version, which we made a year and a half ago, it did have some improvements over the previous versions,
Right.
but it still needs a little bit more, because I believe the new version doesn't, is it the new version that doesn't talk about pictures, or it doesn't talk about plans? one
no,
of
I
those.
think you addressed both those issues. It
I
does.
think Alice made some changes. in the
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
were, because those were the things that were always tripping me up.
Yeah.
And I thought people should know, no, we're not gonna, the town is not gonna pay to cut down the trees.
Yeah.
You know, they're questions I
Yeah.
got asked a
Yeah, that
hundred
came up a
times.
few times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does say attach a plan showing the property boundaries
But
and
I-
the location of the trees. It does say submit photographs. I think you're covered there.
I have like no objection to improving it, if anybody can improve it. I do think we should have collect a fee for doing this.
Yeah.
Because we're always short of money to
Yeah.
pay for like, to send Bill out there to look for things and.
I am also going to be asking the town to have a budget for us. And I encourage all of us to also pressure select people, because we should have a budget, and we don't. There is a shared, incidental fund that I think gets $1,500 a year, was it? For, all of the departments of land use. But stuff comes up where we clearly need professional help and we're sometimes reluctant to get it because we don't have money to pay for it, and that's not the way we should be working.
And usually all the applications end up paying up front, so we get that, but things like this we don't.
Yeah, and like what if we have a situation where we have somebody who say there's a violation and they aren't cooperating with us and we need professional help, well, we need to have a war chest to guarantee that while we're going after to try to.
The only
get the
thought I'd
person
like to
pay.
keep amongst us when we do all of this, my biggest thing about all of this, I don't like to create more fees and more rules. To really kinda keep it as low as we can, because, rules are good, but I think sometimes they go overboard. Same thing with fees. If somebody wants to apply for a driveway permit or take a tree or something down, I don't wanna charge them a lot of money to come in, because a lot of times they're not gonna do it because they don't wanna pay, and then we're going into a different area, and I like to do things the right way, a nice way, if we can.
Oh, I
But-
definitely hear you on that, and a lot of the stuff we're talking about with these street permits, it isn't specific, well, it's not a fee to us, it's that there's the advertising requirement and the publication requirement, and to advertise, depending upon the number of abutters, is $150, $160.
Right.
And then the publication is another $160, so.
I mean, the requirements themselves are imposing a financial burden on the town. And, but they are the requirements. So as a result of that, they need to be paid. And I do not believe this is something that should be subsidized by the town. It should be basically, the burden should be
Right,
from
right.
the
I
person
just
who's the
what I'm
applicant.
trying to say, Francois, is I don't wanna create so many rules and fees for everything, and I just,
No, we
and I
agree.
wanna keep that in
I
mind when we
think
do
we agree
things.
with you. I think it's just a matter of making sure that we're recouping the actual costs.
No, I agree with that.
And
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do here. And I think to your point, there is no fee schedule right now for scenic road bylaw. And I'm looking at the scenic road bylaw itself, and I'm not seeing anything in terms of fees. So I think
Yeah.
that is a gap right now,
Okay.
and that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, cause the worst outcome is people not knowing.
Right.
And what they're on the hook for, and if someone looks at it and is like, oh, well, it's gonna be $300 for me to get permission to spend $2,000 to cut down these trees. Well, yeah, that's the way construction works most of the
Right,
time,
right.
so,
I just wanna keep that in mind when
Yeah.
we do things.
I agree with you very much in a general philosophical way, because I think we as a town, we have too much stuff that isn't enforced, and I think we need to fix that as a policy matter. Either those things shouldn't be rules, or we should be enforcing them, because
No, I agree with that.
we need to encourage business to come here and pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So, any further discussion on that?
Yeah, I wanted to solicit a couple specific pieces of input. I mean, my intention here is to put together a draft for you guys to look at either next meeting or the following meeting.
I know I'd
Me
love
too.
that.
Can we
Um,
send it out in an email so we can see it before the meeting?
No.
No?
He puts it in the folders, so we can.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I meant, so we could see it, that's all.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You're very mean.
What a nice meme.
But with regard to the bylaw, my reading of the bylaw is that there are two instances with scenic roads that come to you for a hearing or for an application. One is tree removal, and the other is stone wall
Correct.
alterations. The current form presents it as a three-pronged possibility. It asks you to check a box. Is this a scenic road permit? Is it a tree removal permit? Or is it a stone wall permit? I don't know what a scenic road permit is, independent of those other two issues.
It should be subsidiary categories, I think. Oh, check all that apply. Well, that was Mallory's putting it together, but it obviously is a scenic road permit because
Yep. The whole thing's a scenic road
That's
permit. It should be checked on every form.
The fact that you're getting that
Really
piece of
needs
paper means it's a scenic road permit,
But there isn't any third possibility that I've missed here, right?
unless you want to put a new one in here, but I don't think we do.
Yeah, that's like check the box if you read the instructions.
All right, and the other thing is
Good catch, though.
on the addendum that you attached to it to clarify some of these issues that keep coming up
Yeah.
again and again. Who is responsible for payment? And one of the terms and conditions, which is basically a performance standard, is stump cutting at no more than 6 inches above ground.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to, I mean,
Oh,
given,
that's-
given that Bill is recommending to grind down to ground surface on this situation at New Templeton, should we rethink that?
I think
So
we
it-
should. I vote for rethinking
Does,
it.
does the bylaw, call for a specific
No.
tree height?
No.
It does, from a stump perspective, I think it does.
No, the
6 inches,
bylaw,
right?
the
It's a
bylaw
6.
doesn't.
The bylaw
Here,
doesn't?
here's
It
my
does-
thinking on that. I wrote this, so the 6 inches probably came from Bill, and it probably came out of this discussion, cause they were way up there. But these
Okay.
stumps, if they're not ground down, become big sinkholes. Right? I mean, we have one in our yard that we put 3 wheelbarrows full of dirt in every year. It must have been a massive tree that was removed umpteen years ago. So, and then it affects, all these trees are very close to the road, and then it affects the, I don't know. I
Well-
personally would,
On New Templeton Road, the only reason to take those trees down is for safety. And if you're gonna take those trees down for safety, then you need to take them down to the ground grade, because that's what you need to make it safe. So in that circumstance, they have to be equal to the ground grade, cause you can't see over the stump even as the stump exists today. If you
It's
pull
just
up
because
in
of
a
the
car,
gradient of the way
Right,
the cars
right,
come
if
out.
you pull up
Can
in a
we-
car, you're looking at a stump.
What's the average expense for grinding out a stump now? If we do that, are we causing undue burden on anybody, or?
Well, most of the case, it can be taken out by an excavator. But if it's immediately adjacent to a stone wall,
Yeah.
they're gonna destroy the stone wall. And these are 36 and 48 inch, beautiful, healthy oaks, and their roots go,
Right.
so there's no, you take that stump out, the only way you can do it is to grind it or rot it out, accelerate the rot.
But do you have any kind of ballpark on what it costs to grind a stump out?
I have no idea.
So like,
Something like that would be expensive. They're big and they're hard to get to.
And they're hard to grind.
Yeah, the oaks.
Yep.
so
Can
what
we
do you
make it-
recommend?
wha-
What would you say we should do here? To ground level in all cases? Is that too much to
Can we make a
ask?
statement that all stumps have to be cut down to a 6-inch grade unless otherwise specified by the town's engineer, by our engineer? Something like that wording, so we can
Or
incorporate.
just
can
down
we,
to
can
the
we generally
ground, why
say
not?
that it is, unless it obstructs visibility,
Well,
like it is
Yeah,
specifically
see,
to
you're
the
getting
space?
into the splitting the hairs and you
Right,
don't wanna do
right.
that.
Well, I mean, this
I want a general
this is the one
statement.
case, this is the
Yeah.
one case,
Flush to the grade unless otherwise required.
alright,
Yeah.
Change it to
so
that?
no longer 6 inches.
Whatever you like.
Flush to,
I like
I
that.
make a
is
motion,
that creating a
change
big
it
expense
to,
for everyone?
Well, we'll make a motion on the
Flush
actual
the grade,
form, we're just
you do it with
drafting
the
points.
chainsaw.
Yeah, we're just talking.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
But we're trying to give them directions too,
Yeah,
so it's
So
general
for us to
agreement on to
grade,
the
they
grade,
can do with a chainsaw.
ground
yeah,
grade,
that's,
okay,
yeah.
And you know, they'll pick the highest grade and make it flush to that. you know.
Okay.
That's how construction works.
Right, right. They also don't wanna get their chains into the dirt either.
They really do not,
No, it ruins your chains very quickly.
yeah.
Just makes it better to hop off it with a bike.
Alright, that's enough for tonight.
Okay.
It gives me something to draft together and let you think about.
Alright, so that covers those administrative matters. I guess in terms of matters not reasonably anticipated by chair, mostly because I realized it today. We're creeping up on that spring meeting faster than, yeah, we're creeping up on it pretty fast. So, by the time we have our next meeting, we're gonna need to take another good hard look at the project list and get a timeline in terms of what we think we can get done for the Springtown meeting. Cause we have a bunch of things that we've worked on a little bit, some things that are half finished, some things that are going with MRPC. Also, everybody has the report from MRPC on the town center project. I think we all need to spend some time looking at that, and I think planning needs to be more involved in it than we were in the past. Because we're really talking about something that could lead to some pretty substantive changes. Redoing the town center overlay, especially if we're talking about expanding it and changing the uses within it. And I think based upon our experiences of the last couple of years, it probably is gonna make sense to change the uses that are allowable in the town center. For example, maybe we shouldn't have outdoor marijuana grows in the town center, so, there's definitely gonna be a lot to look at and a lot to discuss on that, so I encourage everybody to take a look at that to start getting up to speed.
I know I'm a pain in the ass tonight, but, so I read that report, and it was full of wonderful ideas. But the thing that jumped out at me is that every single town they compared us with, all the town center districts, right? All had smaller lot sizes and shorter frontage requirements to increase the density in these towns. I mean, ours are way off by a factor of, you know, some of them are 50, some of them are 100, some of them are 80. There's nothing like 200.
So,
So is there any?
I think we're gonna need to go through the public, listening session to find out, really what the public is gonna be supportive on that, because you can make a pretty good argument that maybe our zoning for the town center should match what our town center currently looks like. And maybe in an area where most of the lots are very small to start with, we probably shouldn't have a 2-acre requirement with 200 square feet of frontage. So, 200 linear feet of frontage, Bill?
So, just keep in mind, we have no sewer, we have no public water. So under Title V, for sewage disposal systems, your minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet for a lot that has a septic system and a well.
Okay.
So there is no point in, and the other thing you should keep in mind is the center of our town is made up of one of the worst soil groups for septic systems in the nation. It's not clay, but it's close. So this whole ridge line that we're on, you can say 40,000 square feet and whatever the frontage is, but if you look at those lots, they all need more than that because they need to put big honkin' helicopter landing pads, which are their septic systems. So keep that in mind.
Yep.
You can't go smaller, you should not go smaller than 40,000 square feet for a lot, because we have septic and well, and you'd be fighting Title V and the Board of Health the rest of your life.
But we had, like, last week, a lady came in, and she has one of the old houses on Dolores, what's her, Ordway. And she has, like 4 acres. But she has 50 feet short of the frontage to
Right.
divide it and give her, you know, and we should be, everybody knows that I'm like a housing advocate, but we should be allowing, if there are lots like that and there's ways to do it, So
How
what
do you
if we
fix
went
that?
to 150 feet and an acre and a half, just
Well,
incrementally, I
Would
don't
that be
know.
in compliance with a special permit? Can you do it
I
that way?
think we're starting to go a little too far down substantive discussion for something that isn't formally on the agenda,
Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
I do think that we're talking about the right things, and I think we're showing that we all kind of get what the situation is, and we have to find a way to balance these competing interests, and this project is a pretty big opportunity to either get it really right or really wrong. And that's really why I'd like to see planning get much more involved with it. Plus the EDC's down to 3 people now, so, well, I need to talk to Whitney, but planning has to be more involved, at least until the EDC is back at regular strength. I don't think that's gonna be ready for the meeting. I guess other matters, just quick update on the solar bylaw project. Jennifer reached out to both Francois and Alice and got some additional information, and MRPC appears to be moving ahead with that again. So we'll hopefully have more of an update on both the town center and the solar bylaw by then. Alright, anybody have anything else for this evening?
Just a quick,
Yep.
just a quick question, I'll let you
Yep.
go. I know we're supposed to get something back by the 12th of this month from the AG on the battery energy storage system. I'm assuming this will go directly to, will
Yeah.
it go to you?
It'll go to.
I'll let you know if it does.
It goes to town council.
Town
That's
council?
who it goes to
Gotcha.
first.
Okay, and then from her, it goes to,
Well, we'll need to make sure it goes to us from her, but
Okay.
it should go from her to the town administrator, then to Mark and myself.
okay, so just be on the lookout for this here, because I think this is going to be coming within the next week and a half.
Yeah. And if we have to make corrections to it while we're doing the solar stuff, is the right time to do it.
Correct, and we have to understand what type of corrections we need to do, because that might potentially become a suitable candidate for next year's town meeting, if we have to do anything major.
Yeah, and we'll have updates for the bylaws in generals too, depending upon what Carolyn comes back with.
I know you're giving me the evil eye. I want one thing though, is we, in these corrections to the bylaws, which you know I have no memory anymore, so every time we kick down the road, I have to spend 3 hours reading what I did the last time. But anyway, there is one really sticky point, and I'd like to see if I could get Mark to help me with it. And that is, if you look at the map, the reference to the map in the bylaws, it references a 1988 map done by IEP or
IEP.
something, anyway. And then it says it was amended, and the amendment that's incorporated in it rezones everything all the way up to Pitcherville Road from residential to residential. And then there's a map that's actually referred to, that's attached to the bylaw, that's supposed to be the one that applies, that's attached to the bylaw, that's dated 1991. And then there's the map we all use, which is the Access GIS map, which kinda tracks the 1991 map, except the GIS map has no light industry
industrial.
use, it's been eliminated, right? So what I'd like you to research if you can, because there's
Oh, the
only.
history?
No. You can get to,
I think we got the history
Hey,
right here.
This is what happens when you find 200-year-old documents in the vault.
well,
You're
you
now the
really-
go-to guy.
You did really good with whatever that road was the other day, 1892, I was like, wow. No, what?
I remember
What,
that.
so the town meeting by, minutes are on the web for a certain amount of time, but they don't go back to the 90s. So I'm wondering if
That
you
we
could.
actually do have, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, if you could go back to 91, 92 and find out the origin of the map that's attached to this. Cause it's not, nothing is right. The bylaw refers to a map in which it was, I think, zoned all commercial all the way up to Pitcherville. The revision took it all the way back to Ragged Hill. It's now somewhere in the middle of that, and that is reflected sort of on the map, except it's light industry, and that had to have happened around 1991 or 2. But if you could give us a sequence to that, it makes a big difference, because if it's just a correction, then we can do it, right? But if it's actually a missing link, which I kinda suspect it is, then we gotta go to town meeting to fix it. I suspect that in 2011, if you check that too, I suspect we never really took a vote on going to that Access GIS map.
That map, the one on the wall there?
No, the one that's digitized,
Oh.
which eliminates light industry. I don't think it was, but it may have been a formal vote we eliminated, but if we did eliminate it, we left it in the bylaws, we just repeated everything that's in light industry and
Yeah.
commercial.
Well, and this is something we really need to know where it's at, especially when we're talking about changing one of the overlays. And
Right.
when you look at the projects where CMRPC has looked at us, Central Mass instead of MRPC, their reports always focus on the fact that we have an underexploited commercial asset that runs from Rieta Ranch to Route 2. And that when you look at their breakdowns of what they look at the town separate from our planning agent, they always seem to call attention to that. And they've looked at us a couple times in conjunction of what's gone on with the regional school system. So there's actually a planning analysis that they did of Hubbardston in the context of the joint municipal school regional whatever it was called project in like 2017 or something along the lines of that, and they issued economic development findings for Hubbardston. But yeah, we can't look at any of that if we don't know what the right one is to start with. So
No, I had noticed those discrepancies between the map and the bylaw before.
Yeah.
It would be nice
You
to
could help me
straighten
out
that
on
out.
that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, if it's actually town
And-
meeting minutes, we've got a shot.
okay.
If it's board proceedings and correspondence, forget it.
Yeah.
But even if you know that there was, you can look through the minutes and say there was no vote on this, at least we know we now need to take a vote. Right.
Anything else for public comment? Yes.
Mike Stahl, 5 Lombard Road, you must be down to, agenda item number 9.
Yes.
Mr. Murray produced a document, a map for the Tavano, discussion. Is it a possibility for me to get a copy, of that?
Yeah, I actually sent it to Mark. I don't know, I don't have your email, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
so too.
okay. And Mark, if you need my
It's
email.
just the Mass GIS data
Yeah.
layer of showing the zoning. Yeah.
Actually, if you go into something, it's not called Mass Mapper is what it's called, Mass
Yes,
GIS.
it's
Mass
not
Mapper.
Oliver anymore.
Right,
That's the
exactly.
that's the replacement
And
for
you
Oliver.
can pull up the vernal pools and 1,700 different
It'll have
layers.
that cross-hatching,
No, you gotta activate the layers.
okay.
It's checkboxes.
Yeah, well,
Once-
I've used it,
Yeah.
but I
Actually,
may not know
that
which,
particular one is hard
I-
to find.
I don't
It
know
doesn't
maybe
categorize well.
which box needs to be checked. Cause you mentioned that it's a certain DEQ zone?
DEP, yeah.
DEP,
DEQ, DEQE doesn't exist anymore.
Okay,
There it was.
neither does MDC, right?
MDC, yeah.
Okay, so that's, I need to know the right nomenclature, so I know which box to hit.
I think it's,
I'll send you both the image and I'll tell you where it is
Okay,
in the
thank you.
table of
regulated
contents.
areas and surface watershed protection.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Quick question.
Yep.
Has Paper Crane submitted to the planning board for amended special permit?
I don't believe so, have they?
Not in my time. All
I
5 weeks
know-
of it.
I know they have had discussions going with the select board, about amending their, community host agreement.
Not Paper Crane. Paper Crane is the,
Boy,
yeah, Bowie.
I think they both have actually
Oh, yeah?
had conversations recently.
Because I was speaking with one of their engineers and they said they were going to submit like a month ago.
Yeah, if they haven't sent it to me, and, Mark hasn't seen it either, so.
Okay.
Alright, anything else?
just vacation schedules and holiday schedules. I just wanna announce here that, right off the bat, and it's more important because of, making sure we have a quorum. I'm out of the country from the 12th of December till January the 5th.
Okay.
So during that period of time, we just gotta make sure that we have people who attend and make sure that the board has a quorum.
I'm back.
No, I'm not
Right,
saying
right.
it
No,
because
no,
of
no,
you,
no.
it's just in general, things
Yeah.
happen and people cannot make it to the meetings. And so, and I'm just gonna be like many times those difference.
Yeah, and we're gonna have to talk about December anyways at the next meeting, because December is another month where the first day of the month is a Thursday.
Yeah.
So it puts the first Wednesday and the third Thursday only 1 week apart from each other. So
Yeah,
we'll
very
we'll
close
have to
to-
look at what's going on for projects and such. I would anticipate there's a possibility we don't have to have the last meeting unless Paper Crane or somebody like that files, cause there isn't a lot of building that's going on then, so.
It's just that's just the issue. That's
Yeah.
why I'm
And
thinking of it.
even if they file, you've got a big advertisement lead time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for reminding us of that.
Okay.
The annual reports are on the list to get through administratively. For solar and for cannabis.
Do we, are we, have we received anything from cannabis at all for the annual report? Because they're supposed to, within the year of the special permit, they-
Send us the information.
they're supposed to provide a report.
They essentially just need to give us pictures and a copy of what they submitted to CCC, so I don't think it should take much more than an email to get it from them. I'll work with Mark on that. I'll show him the section of the special permits.
Can you develop a form for the solar fields so that people can just fill it out and send it back?
We're gonna work on
'Cause-
that.
We really chase them, and I think if you just sent a form with a self-addressed stamped envelope and with 5 lines,
Can
Yeah,
we make it
where-
a form
You
on the
might get it
internet so
back.
they can just go into the town website and fill it out?
Well, they actually come looking for us to pay their taxes because they get passed around to different, so the people, there aren't people that own those. They get sold to Asset Back Trust.
Right.
80069, whatever. And the people who manage those trusts end up coming to us to look for their tax bills because we don't know
Okay.
where to send them because they get sold
Right.
around so often.
Right.
So we're gonna put the request for that in with their tax bills, and
Oh, okay,
the collector will
that's
hand
very
that
clever,
request out
very
with it.
good,
cool.
So that ought to fix that problem in the future.
very
Yeah.
good.
So,
Wow.
we just have to, actually do all the stuff, and we've been catching up on a lot, and, I'm sure you guys have seen it with the minutes. Mark has been making a Herculean effort to get us into a decent spot again.
An amazing improvement, I have to say. Thank you so
Wow.
much, really.
Yeah,
It's great.
I'll-
All
second that.
22s, all 22s up on the website right now.
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
absolutely
Thank you.
fantastic, so we appreciate that.
We're on to
Part-time.
2021.
Back to the future.
Yeah, all right, so if there's no other comments, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
I will second the motion.
Hearing a first and a second, it's not debatable.
I need a couple signatures, Erica
Uh,
and Bill,
yeah.
on your way out.
Let's have,
Can you stay for a second? I had a question for
let's
you
have the
later
vote on
later
the motion to adjourn.
For you, I have a
Aye.
question for you.
Goodbye.
Home and dry.
Steiger, aye.
Monroe, aye. We are adjourned
Aye, aye,
Thank
aye.
you.
at 7:40.